TPN at technophilespodcast.com. I'm David Geisler, and this is the Technophiles Podcast.
I think that companies are going to start using these models as a way of onboarding people into their own programs. And so this can be a way that they can give people the skills they need to operate in their company well.
This week on the Technophiles Podcast, David meets with Jake Gill to discuss the ups and downs of online education. Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's episode. I am your co-host, David Geisler, along with Mr. Jake Gill. Oh, Mr. Jake Gill again. I said that last time, Jake. Jake is Skyping in from California. How are you, Jake?
I'm doing well, although it's certainly not evening here.
Yeah, well, okay, so you and I usually record during the day. In the last couple episodes, we've recorded at night, and I've had to fake that it's daytime with these massive lights over here on my side.
It's nice and
I'm so
bright
used
here.
I'm so used to faking that it's actually daytime, but it is actually daytime today. And Jake, I feel like I haven't seen you in forever. We've had, maybe it's been a full month since you've been on the show.
Yeah, I think so.
It's a little weird.
Yeah, it feels like a long time, but it's been cool watching you with the other hosts talking about some very interesting topips. So, as a TPN fan, I've been enjoying the break because I get to hear other people's takes on things.
It is kind of interesting in that now that it is only 2 people per episode. It is kind of interesting how you might have a relationship with Alex Sheehan just by hearing his episodes or seeing his episodes, or perhaps Leona might have a relationship with you just by seeing your episodes, but we never actually interface with each other right now anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So it certainly has been a long time since we gotten together, but it's been cool to see, what the other Technophiles hosts have been doing, and super That's fun. Cool. So
fair enough. And I think maybe going forward, there might be some opportunities where maybe you and Alex do a show one week, or you and Leona do a show, and we might see if that stuff kind of works into the schedule as well. But for now, tonight, we are talking about a topic that you selected, and you have your titling here is Digital Learning, Exploring Online Education. And I can only assume this is about people that are doing, online schooling and stuff like that, people who are taking classes or going to college over the internet. I'm sure that that's the kind of thing that you're going to be talking about tonight.
Yep, we're certainly going to be talking about that stuff. So I think before we kind of get into that stuff, I wanted to just have a little bit of an introduction to why I chose this topic. And I guess I'm going to start first and foremost, this is basically my job during the day. I run a web and an app company that helps people read and write Chinese and Japanese. And so we are very much in the online educational space. Granted, we're kind of we're a website and we're in the app store. But it's what we do. We pay attention to this kind of stuff. So that was one reason why I was kind of drawn to this, just, working day to day. I'm seeing a lot of these different things. But the other reason is that as a student, as an educator previously, I have a little bit of experience in doing some online learning. When I was in college, I had, there was a lot of platforms where you would upload documents or have kind of chat conversations with some of your classmates. But I did take one course that was entirely online. There was no interfacing with the teacher apart from the things that we did online. So that was a unique experience. And I think that, I'm removed now. I graduated in 2011, so it's been quite a while since that stuff, as far as a student perspective. Then as a graduate student, which was a few years later, but technology kind of it continuously improves. So while I was in grad school, I actually did online teaching, where we had a virtual classroom. So we actually had students live.
Me, Jake. Yeah, that means you did the teaching. You did some of the teaching.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah, so I guess I have a little bit of experience from kind of both perspectives here. So I did some teaching where my students would come in live to a virtual classroom and they would interface with me. And so we used a variety of tools, not, in addition to video, but our PowerPoint slides and things were kind of in this application that we were using at the time, and students could chat. And so I had that experience as well. And then kind of more recently, which is really what kind of got me excited about this topic again, is it's been my new favorite way to spend my free time is end of 2017, early 18. I've been taking a lot of actually online courses and tutorials and things like that. And I mean, in the last kind of like 3 months here, I just wrote some notes down, but like I've kind of taught myself how to use Sketch application, Adobe Illustrator. I've taken some like management classes, class on UX and UI design. So like application design stuff and like digital sketching and illustration. And like, I'm having so much fun.
I'm loving it how like your Twitter feed and sometimes your internal Slack messaging to us even at Technophiles every couple of days, like another graphic that you've drawn or that you're working on gets dropped in, and it's been a pleasure to see.
It's been super fun, and like, you know, so it's been taking up a lot of my free time, obviously, you know, the spare moments in life. And I realized that actually when I was talking to people, and so to kind of bring this full circle about why this topic is that, you know, I think that there's a lot of information out there about online education, but when you're talking to individuals, you know, when I was talking to some of my friends or whatever, it's kind of exactly how you open, David. It's like, oh yeah, like you can take like classes online. Full stop. And that's kind of where the conversation ends, or that's like the impression of it. And so when I started doing some research, I was like, well, actually, you know, this topic is like, it's so broad compared to that. It's not just kind of online courses or whatever.
Nice.
And so I kind of wanted to explore that a little bit. And like the more I dug in, the more kind of interesting I thought it was. So with all of that said, I think we should kind of break down what I mean by online education. So
certainly.
You know, like I said, there's a lot of different elements to this concept. And what I would consider, and what I found when I was doing research, David, was that there's like two different kind of schools, like primary schools of thought, or not even schools of thought, but like ways that we can categorize things. So there's like for credit, I'm going to call them for credit, kind of institutions or platforms. And then there's training or like skill focused platforms. And sometimes there's some overlap that actually happens inside of these platforms. But like you have like for credit stuff where you're like, yep, I'm taking like a degree or something like that. And it's these like courses that have homework assignments and things like that. And then there's the alternative. So I want to break this down a little bit more. Sure. But like those are the biggest, to me, when I was looking at it, the two kind of large areas are like for credit, or what I would consider like a little bit more like traditional education if we think about like going to school and having our topics, and then there's like the alternative. So
all right. Hey, these for credit situations, do they sometimes feed into a brick and mortar experience as well, or are they kind of their own online experiences, or is it a little bit of both?
So it's a little bit of both. So if I have to break this down a little bit further, once we get into this kind of like for credit concept here, I think that there's a bunch of different ways that kind of online education works. And exactly to your point there and your question, I would say that, you know, in my experience, we have a few different things. And there's some kind of like keywords here. So I'll talk about them and we can kind of break them down. So the first thing would be something like a flipped classroom. And this is like a buzzword. It was very popular a few years ago. And what this means is that to a student, from a student-teacher perspective, lectures, no matter kind of what your age range is, but like lectures and content when you're giving a lecture don't really need to be digested in the classroom.
Okay.
Like technology is so good now that a teacher can actually record their lecture and they can provide it.
Of course.
And this can be something that a student does at home, at their own time, with their own pace.
Indeed,
you know, if they have
the
a
lecture
problem,
itself isn't interactive, is it? It is even when you're there in person. It's just listen.
And sometimes it is, but it's really only interactive for the individual. If you have the question, you stop, you raise your hand or whatever. And like, so with a flipped classroom, actually, one of the benefits too is like you can stop, you can pause your video, you can rewind your video. You know, you can do all these different things where you're like, I don't get a concept. Okay, I can go and Google this really quick and kind of sort it out. So the concept for flipped classrooms being that lectures or kind of the primary like core concepts are taught outside of the classroom. They're kind of interacted with at home or in the library, whatever, but they're not in the kind of learning space. And then what happens is you come into the classroom and that's where you have your discussions with peers in person, or you work with your teacher, you get assistance, you go over your homework, you do stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's one method. And actually, I think that a lot of programs, you know, based on my experience, I would say that when I was in college, a lot of my courses, if they were trying to do kind of online learning, this is what they did. Okay. I think that this is a very popular method. You know, it's like, hey, we'll do this content. And I think that from a college, like not an educator necessarily, but like an institution's perspective, you have a teacher that makes like great content. and they only have to make it once. And then it's always available.
Yeah.
And then now the discussion and the thing that the students are going to school for learning can happen in the classroom live with your peers. You can be going over projects, doing presentations. You can just like focus your time and use it a little bit more effectively. And that's at least the theory.
That like that lecture could transcend semesters and years? That teacher could record that lecture and there it is and just really focus on having these discussions each semester? Is that how that could work?
It could definitely work that way. And actually, so we'll get into that a little bit more with some of the other kind of educational like ways that like for credit kind of institutions work.
Got it.
So the other one is, and it's similar to this, but like let's call it computer assisted learning, CAL. And oftentimes what happens here is it's computer assisted blank learning, and they put some things in. So like my research in grad school was on computer assisted language learning. So it's about how apps, technologies, things like that interact with the learning process and kind of boost the learning process. And oftentimes with these things, it's there's a couple different ways. So one of the ways that I mentioned as a teacher was like this idea of like a virtual classroom, right? We're using a virtual interface to create the classroom experience. What this allows for is that we can be live anywhere in the world, but we can do it at the same time, and like we're not restricted. You don't have to come into the classroom physically to have this class. Additionally, it could just be something like, having your textbook on a iPad for you to use and mark up and take notes on, or, some app that helps you study your math or like whatever it is. But basically the computer or the mobile screen or whatever becomes a tool that you use to kind of boost your learning. And so, I would put that into online education. Just as like, it's certainly if you look in the App Store and stuff, like this is a focus for a lot of companies. It's like how Skritter, our company does its job, right? We're a computer assisted, we're using technology to assist you in your own learning process. So this to me, like definitely falls in, whether it's for credit or not is a bit murky here, but like, I'm thinking for credit here is kind of, maybe it's better to kind of think of this as like traditional, like learning of like, you're consuming information in this way. Right.
Okay.
So, in this space here, if we're looking at the for credit option, typically when it's any kind of computer assisted learning process, what that would mean is that there's a tool that you're using in addition to the classroom, or it's a virtual classroom and students are still showing up. There's attendance, there's participation, all these things. It's very similar to your typical brick and mortar thing. It's just done, with a computer.
Cool.
So then the other one, one of the other ones that I have on here is online universities. And so this would be like your University of Phoenix,
right?
Trump University.
It's technically an online one.
I don't really know if we're gonna include those in the conversation, but like, I think that when we talk about online education, these things are gonna come up. They've been in the news for a long time. And I don't know, I think that there's probably a lot of bias, or at least there was, at least in the beginning, you would see these like, maybe they have like some brick and mortar stuff or they have some advertising. But the idea was, hey, look, you can go online, you don't have to go to class, and you can get your degree.
And as long as you pass the tests and all the rest, then it counts.
Then you're good, right? And so the credibility of that degree, I would say that my perception of it was that initially early on, it was like, I would never, hire someone that has a degree from one of these things. But as, now we're talking about 2018, right? And so like, maybe it's not all online university. There are certainly universities that only operate online, but you also have other colleges and institutions where they are offering you degree opportunities online. And so maybe the university itself is still brick and mortar, but for students that maybe don't want to go to class every single day, they're working professionals, whatever, there are options now that happen online. And this kind of ties into our next large topic, which is these, what they're called Moocs. And these are massive open online courses is what this stands for. MOOC, S, the S is in there. But, this is something that I think that we brought up, like Krista Lee brought this up a long time ago for one of her episodes. I think she was coming back from like a digital conference or whatever, right?
Yeah, this is back in season 8. Yeah, pardon me, it was back in season 8, I remember, yeah.
And so Moocs here, these massive online, open online courses, these have been around for quite some time. So just kind of looking through and doing some research, like 2011 is where I think these kind of really started to pick up steam. But like 2012 was kind of deemed the year of the MOOC. And this was where things like MIT X came out, where MIT said, hey, Stanford being another program that came out, where they were concerned about the commercialization of online education. So in 2012, they created this nonprofit MITx, and these courses were launched where a student could go online and like everything was open source. So the lectures were recorded, the homework assignments were all uploaded, all of the resources that were available, all super like open online. Whoever wants to go through and do these courses can do them through this website. And so the idea here of this kind of stuff is that there is unlimited participation and access to anyone. So enrollment numbers are no longer a factor.
Right.
So, which is like super interesting, but you can have like 25,000 people enrolled in a single class.
Right.
Which is actually not uncommon for a class that's really good. So these things, and so like, I would say that some like large players in this industry, like you might, I don't know, David, have you ever heard of Khan Academy?
Only because I think we spoke about it in that episode.
Okay. So Khan Academy is one that certainly is in the conversation for these MOOC things, for these MOOC courses. And they are like 100% free. It's a .org. They've kind of opened up, and their kind of goal is like education. And they want access. And for a lot of this stuff that we're talking about in this episode, I'm going to be honest. I'm focusing mostly on the United States here. I could go global but I feel like that would be like an entirely separate episode where we're talking about like access to education and things. And I do think that a lot of these applications or these websites or whatever, like they do have a mission of trying to educate everyone. They want accessibility to education, right? If you have an internet access, like you can go in and you can get the skills and take the courses that you need, no matter where you are. And that's this is a super cool concept. So MOOCs have been around for a long time. They're still fairly popular. Excuse me.
That's fine.
Some other kind of big players in the space, Coursera, Udacity, University of California, Berkeley, Stanford, Harvard, like all these places are kind of investing a lot of energy and time and resources into these online courses. And so oftentimes I think with these MOOCs, the way that I've kind of defined them and the reason that I think they fit into this like 4-credit space would be that they're many of them are created with partnership from a certain university or a professor, maybe more particularly, but like the university is happy to sign off on it. So a professor would go in and kind of create all these contents and create the classroom and the syllabus and all these different things. And then these services would kind of host this content online for anyone to join.
And when people join, are they still paying a tuition to do that?
So it kind of depends.
Okay.
Let's see here. I mean, I have, that's fine. I have some notes in here somewhere and a little bit later, but like,
Sure.
For your question, no. I think we address it now because it's a great question. What I have seen is like there's kind of two different ways of doing this. Sometimes it's just open enrollment, completely free. And so, companies like websites like Khan Academy and stuff like that's their whole model. They want things to be free and they want education to be accessible. If you're talking about a massively open online course from a university, typically you are paying a fee for these credits. It's very similar. I mean, it's for credit, right? So the university is endorsing this. They're saying that, hey, like we're going through and we're doing we're working with you. We expect you to participate. And typically here that a lot of these courses will have open start. They will have a fixed like start and end time. So let's say this is a 4-week course. You are kind of participating every single week. There's going to be assignments. We expect you to make progress. And, if you don't do it, no big deal. It's not the end of the world, but like you're not going to pass the course.
It does give it some structure, though. That is nice.
Yeah, it gives it structure. And in the end, when they are signing off on giving you credits, like they want people to kind of start and end at the same time. And oftentimes there's like grading and there's tests. And so you need everything to kind of happen together. And so, yeah, you would be paying a lot of these courses. Sometimes there's like a freemium model. So you can access some courses that are like completely free and open source. MIT has a lot of these courses where, they want this accessibility to everybody. And so you can go in and you can just sign up for them. But if you want to kind of be a degree seeking student, then you might actually be paying for these credits. Although traditionally, so like in 2003 here, for example, Udacity, which is one of these companies, they launched an entirely massively open online course. And it was actually a master's degree that you could get. And it cost $7,000 to do.
Right.
So, but you compare that to a traditional education. Like,
yeah, right.
You're not, where are you going to get a master's degree for $7,000 in the United States at a brick and mortar school?
Yeah, you're gonna get 5 classes for that much.
Yeah, if that, right?
Yeah.
Like that's your semester's enrollment, And if it's private education, like, well, let's not even go there. It's going to be even higher. So this is kind of the appeal to these massively open online courses.
What's interesting here is we're still speaking about it in this model where you're getting credit. I also see in your notes here that the very next thing as we click over is going to be Moocs for maybe just a super open concept learning situation.
Yeah. So the next kind of, I think that we've kind of wrapped on this idea of like for credit stuff.
Yeah, right.
A lot of these things, there's these different concepts of how education and online technology kind of influences this online stuff. But really, when you break it down, it's very similar to what you would anticipate if you go into a classroom, right? It's going to follow the same kind of format. There's going to be a lecture. There's going to be homework. The teacher is still like walking you through these things. They are the expert, and the topic is kind of predetermined for you.
I see where you're going with this.
So you opt in. So the other kind of way that online education is kind of really picking up steam would be what I found the two kind of largest things would be professional training and kind of certificate training or like some kind of like test prep stuff. So here again, and we don't have to cover too much of the massively open online courses, but there are certainly not for credit programs out there that do the same kind of thing for professional training or for certificate training or something. So you have someone creating content. Let's just use an example of like language learning, I think is kind of a huge thing for this. Maybe you're not going to a university for language learning, but you're interested in learning a language. So you might enroll in this online course where all the content is created and there's a syllabus and you have homework and stuff like that. And so you can be doing that. And then the end goal here is maybe to go take a test for the language and to get that certification. So this could be something that is you pay for, or maybe it's like, it could be free as well. But there is some expectation in the end that like we're going to give you the skills you need to go do the thing that you need to do once you're done with this course. Okay.
This could also be like learning to code a language, learning to code or other things.
Yep. Exactly. So when we're looking at the professional training certificate kind of training style of online learning, that's what I definitely think it is, David. I think you hit on it right there. It is much more, in my opinion, focused on kind of skills. It's about what kind of tools or resources you need.
Resume or whatever. If you're looking, if you're even just getting started in an industry or something, you can put a few more things on your resume.
Exactly. So I think one other way that I would differentiate between kind of for credit and kind of more professional training styles of online education is that oftentimes I feel like with these training or certificate things, it's a lot more like finish at your own pace. The certificate, the end goal is kind of all that matters. So you can do this in your own time. It's whenever you want to do it. There's no like you have to wait for your next class to happen. There's no lectures that you're going into. Everything is kind of pre-recorded. There's like a certificate, some kind of testing at the end. And so when you want to finish it, you can. So if you're ambitious, go ahead, man, go ham. You can just get it done. But, if you want to take your time, that's okay too. Like it's not like you're saying this class starts on this date and ends on this date.
I see.
That expectation kind of gets thrown out the window because, everyone is going to be, it's a lot, it's free and it's really like liberating. I think I'm personally like have been much more working in this space recently and like, I love it. I think it's so
because
great.
You're literally picking up like you're working on like design skills and stuff like that is what it sounds like. You're working with these pieces of software. And
or like skills for my job, right? Like,
Sure.
if it's some kind of like management thing or like whatever it is, if you want to be a better writer, like it doesn't, I mean, literally there is a course for like almost anything. So popular areas. So what I did here, and I did this, I'll do another breakdown. We kind of look at some key players, but like just looking through in general, I would say that the popular areas for kind of professional training certificate things, it's like personal improvement, how to be better with your finances. Maybe you're doing some investing. Maybe you're like trying to be healthier, diet better, whatever it is. There's a lot of stuff in here that focuses on that stuff. Then you have like professional improvement. So certificate programs, you kind of pick the certificate that you're looking for. And, I bet that there's an online class for it. So if like you're a nursing student and you need to get some qualification, educators that are maybe moving different states, like there are a lot of opportunities for people to go and get check the boxes off for what they need for their job. Health and fitness being wildly popular here too, like especially when we talked about the mobile app space. I don't know, health and fitness, like to me, it kind of also falls into this education thing, right? Like someone who's like an expert in fitness is kind of giving you like a training regime.
I hear that. I see that.
And so it's like, but it's also could be something where like there could be online courses where it just tells you like, hey, this is the proper way to work out. Right. And like, so the person does the thing and like you get and maybe it's not much on the user end, but like if you're training to be like a professional trainer or dietitian or something like that inside of these areas, like I guarantee you can find that certificate online as well.
I can see that.
The other super popular thing being languages. A lot of people like to use online learning for languages. It's a way that anytime, no matter what age you are, like you can delve into it and you can start learning something new. And then the other thing that I think is a little bit more unique about professional training or certificate training stuff is like this idea of P2p education, so peer-to-peer education. So this would be someone where, they might be like an expert, they could be an expert. They could also just be like an amateur that has like a way of doing something and they can create content and share it and put it online and host it, and then people can get access to it. So, a lot of these sites when you're looking on there, maybe it's not someone that has like a PhD or whatever, some kind of a degree necessarily in the field, but they have like years of industry experience. And so you have access to that stuff. It's not a teacher, quote unquote, but it's a working professional that might have some skills. I was like bundling YouTube in here as like there's so many tutorial channels that are on YouTube. You have people creating content. To me, this certainly is online education.
Yeah, I can see that. I see where you're going with this. Yeah.
And then there's a program, we'll talk about it a little bit later, but it's called Udemy, Udemy, it's Udemy, but their entire business model is peer-to-peer. It's people creating resources, they're the platform, and they sell their courses to users, and then people engage with them.
Interesting. I can't help but think about a year or so ago on the show, we spoke about Google trying to actually build a model off of this where people could have accounts, and it was kind of their version of like live YouTube. It was a variation on their live YouTube stuff, and they were trying to make it so that people could be, I guess, teachers, like, oh, this is how I play guitar, this is how you play this guitar, or someone could have a question about how to cook something or how to design something or do something on Illustrator, and these people could offer their services, sometimes live even. I think ultimately that model was difficult for Google to keep going, but it was an interesting idea.
Yeah. Well, and I think, one thing, I'm not familiar with this from Google, but I would say that like just kind of looking around on YouTube recently, I would say that like they kind of already have this in that space. Like,
well,
I think that's a platform for this.
I think YouTube was good enough. And actually, I remember specifically, it was an episode that I think Drew Nowakowski was filling in for you because you might have been taking your bike trip on the other side of the planet. And we spoke about it then. And it was a quick thing. And I think about a year later, we kind of tried to check in on it. And it seemed like it didn't catch. And it's probably because YouTube's good enough.
Yeah, I think so. And I know that like Google does have something called Google Classroom. When I was like poking around through their features, I didn't dig into it too much. For me, it wasn't something that like when I was Googling this kind of stuff, it didn't come up as like a key player quite yet. So we'll have to wait and see. But actually this is perfect here because like, honestly, there are so many crazy things happening. in this space, and like it's not going anywhere. So if we go back here, if we go way back into the history time machine, way back here being like 20, 30 years, I mean, it's not way back, but technologically, like,
so like
things
ancient
have
times.
Yeah, ancient times. There were elements of this. And actually we can go even further back where like even in like the 1800s, there were like people that would submit like homework to like professors in a different country by mail.
Oh, wow. I can totally imagine that. Yeah.
So this is not like a new concept, but if we're looking at kind of this like online concept, things opening up, being, technology being a focus here, I would say that 2005, 2006, things started picking up. 2011, 2012, like really like the year of the Mooc, like these were a lot bigger and they just continue to grow. So looking at market size and kind of future growth here, global online education market. So here I have to go global because a lot of the figures are this way, but we're looking at like an annual growth rate of 10-ish%. And there's an estimate that the market size by 2023 will be $286 billion. And right now, as of 2017, we're looking at like $160 billion market. So like,
see,
craziness.
That's a curve. That's a curve right there.
It's a curve, but it's also like, I mean, this is huge money already. And that's kind of, to me, it's like 2018, looking at some of these things, being in California, being in this Bay Area, sometimes I get it's interesting to hear what people are talking about. And these companies that are doing this stuff are raising good amounts of money, like hundreds of millions of dollars in some of their Series A and Series B fundings. And that is interesting only in the sense that, to me, it just says that like, yep, we're continuing to trend forward. And data, I think, backs this up. It's like, no one thinks that this is going anywhere. And once we get to kind of more future predictions, which will be in the second half of our show, I think that like, we can expound on this a little bit more.
I mean, I think it makes sense. This is one of the few things that can so easily transcend not transcend the internet, but travel through the internet and transcend geography, because it is information. Information is the very first thing that is. So, you can't teleport food through the internet yet, but you can you can share information, and so I can see why this is taking off.
Absolutely. So actually, this might be a great time to kind of go to break. When we come,
I was thinking
we'll take a quick break, and then when we come back, like we'll talk about what I want to talk about is I just want to dig in a little bit more to some of the key players and kind of look at like what kind of courses they're offering, because I think it gives a lot of insight here. And then we'll talk about some ups and downs of education and some interesting things about online education. So anyways, we've got a lot of cool stuff, but yeah, let's take a little quick break.
Because certainly we've been kind of celebrating it so far, and maybe there are a few downsides here and there. I guess it sounds like we're going to talk about it.
We'll dig into them.
Cool, dude. All right, I'll see you in a minute and a half or so. Pardon me.
It's only been 8 weeks and now I'll be an IV
From TPN at technophilespodcast.com, I'm David Geisler, and this is the Technophiles Podcast. All right, everyone. Welcome back from the break. I am here with Jake Gill, Skyping in from California. And Jake, we're discussing, I don't even need to do this. We're coming back from a break. It's like people are they've listened. It's just been a second. It's been a hot minute.
Yeah. We're coming back from the break. Before the break, we just learned that, holy moly, there's a lot of money to be made in online education.
Indeed. It's true. So now it looks
and
like
it's just going to keep going up.
It looks like you want to do a quick breakdown of some. We want to do a deeper dive into some of these companies that you were speaking about, and then we're going to open it up a little bit here too. It looks like.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I kind of did this a little bit already here, right? When we were talking about kind of the courses and skills kind of element of it. But when we're looking, and even just looking at, I want to kind of. So the reason that I waited till after the market thing is that I want to kind of expand back out slightly to look at some of the online education stuff. Like obviously, a lot of my personal experience is, well, I guess it's both. But the interesting thing for me, and the reason that I brought this topic up was much more for the skills and certificate stuff. And I think that this is going to be more relevant when we start talking about like where I think this might be going in the future for humanity.
Sure.
But so what I did was I just looked at some key players and I was like, okay, what kind of data can I gather from this? Actually, I noticed that like it just to me looking through here, I'm like, oh, okay. So like everything that's in here is like TPN episodes. Okay.
I just saw that in your notes just now. To our audience in the notes, literally in parentheses, he has all his breakdown of things we're about to talk about. And as I see them now, yes, they are literally... Probably they were titles on Technophiles episodes for us.
A bunch of TPN episodes. Yeah. So let's start number one here. And these are in no particular order, just kind of as I was doing it. And I had some websites open. Coursera. So this is a huge one. Came in early into the space. I think that oftentimes Coursera would get... it gets brought up a lot for programmers and developers because they do talk about a lot about computer language learning and stuff like that. So when I looked at their popular courses here, right on their website, machine learning, neural networks, learning how to learn. That's very meta. I like it. Programming languages, basically in general, like I just grouped them together because there's a bunch of them. And then like data science.
Yeah,
okay.
4 of those things we've talked about often. But anyway, yeah, it's just fascinating. It's cool.
So Udacity, again, a huge company, came into the space maybe 2013-ish. Okay, they're popular courses. Flying cars and autonomous flight. Learn Unreal VR. Design Sprint Foundations. Honestly, I'm confused. I'm not really
sure what that one is.
And I didn't click on it because I was like, whatever, that's fine. So if you guys know what this is, I suppose after the episode, I can actually go and click on it. But that was not my focus at the time. Google AdWords, Learn AR Kit, and self-driving cars.
Yep.
Okay, so Udemy. I actually, for this one, they mixed it up a little bit. So I just broke down by like their popular categories. And I did this, I will say I did this in an incognito tab. I don't know how much of my own kind of browser history cookies kind of influenced these things, but I tried to like do the best that I could for all of these websites to like keep it like I don't want those factors if I can avoid it. So for them, their popular categories were business, development, and design. And then inside of those were some different areas. And then Khan Academy, which is back, I would put this more into the 4-credit stuff. So they break things down, not really in the same style at all. Their website is a little bit unique here, but they have the subjects right on the homepage, and then you can kind of dig into like the actual courses that they offer. But their subjects that they offered on the main page were math, science and engineering, computing, arts and humanities, economics and finance, test prep, and then college careers and more. And so for that stuff, I think Khan Academy, if I'm honest, like their target is a little bit more like K-12 education.
Seems like it.
And so like, they end here with like how to apply to college, get into, write your stuff, doing resumes, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And so yeah, a little bit different there, but like you get the picture here, right? Like it's very apparent that especially when we're talking about like skills, resources, kind of testing credentials and stuff, it's all like, hey, this is everything you need to kind of prep yourself for the future.
I see that. Yeah. It's true. And honestly, when it comes to even just simple code these days, even if you're just a front-end developer, that code change updates so quickly that half the time, if you were to, this is a little bit ridiculous, but if you were to learn that code in some kind of book that's in a college, by the time that book's there, it's already out of date. Now, granted, I know that most of that's not probably getting printed into physical paper books, but the point I'm trying to make is that this is a very dynamic experience that can be updated immediately.
It is. And that precisely, David, is why I think it's so important to be talking about, because things are changing at such a rapid pace, and having the ability to access new skills and digest information quickly and rapidly is like incredibly important. And I don't see any other way that we can do it. Like, this is the way.
Right.
No one that's a working professional is going to go to school every single day. But if they need to learn something new and learn it quickly, this is an option for them. So, I guess like that's kind of a perfect segue here into the ups and downs of online education. And like, I think that this like instant accessibility is incredibly important. So someone who notices something that's trending upward, that is important, machine learning, neural networks, flying cars, right? Like, instant, they can be online. Some expert that has an opinion on it, has some resources, whatever they're working on, they can create a course and share it with everybody, and now people can get access to it, and you can start learning about those things. So some arguments for here, like obviously you have this like trending accessibility, like things when they're outdated, right? We don't need to use them anymore. We're not spending all this time printing stuff. It's high, but in general here, it's highly specialized. For any one of these key players we talked about, if there's something that you are interested in learning, you have access to that stuff, right? You don't have to go to the best university for this one thing. You go online and you find your site, and you can do that through your site. Or you can do, you can have a bunch of different specialties, but like, you don't have to like move and uproot your life to kind of make that happen, right?
Okay,
it's all accessible.
Right, sure, right. Definitely
And obviously here, just to like further iterate that point, one of my bullet points here was location agnostic. It does not matter where you are. Internet access, that's it.
Right, yeah, right.
So opportunity, another thing that I have here, opportunity to learn from the best. And actually, okay, maybe it's not always the best here, right? But you can learn from anyone. So I think that when I compared this to like a traditional classroom, I personally have found being now like this, like, I'm just going through and doing courses like crazy, right? And I'm probably like busting all of the statistics up that we're going to get into in a brief moment here. Okay. But, if you find an instructor that you don't like in a university, like what are you supposed to do, right?
Oh,
if
I never thought about that. You just have a bad relationship. I'm sorry. Yeah. It just doesn't click or jive, or somehow they teach slightly different than how you learn.
It's
what do
like
do?
You don't learn the same way that your teacher is teaching. And like, I mean, for anything, right? Math, grammar, doesn't matter. If you and your teacher are not jiving, there's going to be a problem.
You think about the olden days, that could seriously accidentally affect someone's life.
I mean, as a very young kid, I actually like had to go to like reading school when I was like, or like an extracurricular thing when I was in like second and third grade. And like my mom, story time with Jake, my mom was like, I think it was your first grade teacher. Like,
Oh,
sure. And it's like, I mean, whatever. Like, it's not even a big deal. Everything worked out. I actually think like it's probably, to me, some kind of specialized reading program is like every kid should have this, because I don't really remember very much of this process, but I do remember like reading a lot more books after that, and like having literally a class in school that's like, go and read. I don't care what you read, go and read. Like, that was pretty sweet, in addition to the library time. But anyways, my point being here is that if you don't jive with your teacher, and I've had this, I'm sure we all have these experiences where like something doesn't click, and all of a sudden you start thinking like, I'm a failure. And like, maybe that's not the case. Maybe their educational style doesn't work quite well with how you learn, or like, something's not that clear. That's okay in this online space, because you can go and you can either just flat drop the course, doesn't matter. And you're going to be out a lot less money, or B, you can supplement what you're learning with other people that have the same ideas. So, going back to kind of myself and my experiences recently, I'm taking like a bunch of different classes from different teachers on the same subject. And I'm finding that really helpful, because they teach them in different ways. And what they do, their own kind of professional background influences how they use the tools that I'm trying to learn. So when I get these different things, my takeaway is like, I actually get all of it. I'm like, great. Okay, cool. If I'm doing this thing for this kind of project, like I can use these styles, here's some other skills. If you talk about something like, especially like design or whatever, like it's so broad. Yeah. So you want to get detailed. So this allows for high specialization.
Absolutely. And certainly in like Adobe products, just to be specific for a moment, every single execution, to draw a thing, to move a thing, to design a thing, there's oftentimes 6 different ways to do it. And Adobe builds the software that way on purpose, because everybody's brains works a little different. But if you're taught the one way to dive through 500 menus, maybe that works really well for someone. Maybe someone else needs a hotkey. And then there's a million other examples. But I think that must be quite exciting.
Oh, I think it is. And so I think that to me, this is one of the largest kind of most beneficial things to like online education in this way is that when something, if you are determined to learn what you want to learn and something's not working out, this is the easiest way to fix that.
Yeah.
It's an instantaneous fix. You just like, yep, I'm not going to do that course. I will go find another course that has the same topic taught by someone else, and maybe that person works better for me.
Yeah, because you didn't spend half a year enrolling and moving and figuring out how you're going to get there and all these things. All of a sudden, you've got this commitment.
And if you're a university student or whatever, like you, what is your option? What, go to a different school? That's incredibly unrealistic. And
that's
so
kind of what I'm saying.
Failure rates kind of go up, right? But like, and so the other thing too is that I think that this also can be a great way to supplement the other things that you're learning. Maybe you are in brick and mortar, maybe you're a student listening to this right now. If you are in a topic, and this is just like my PDA directly to, if you are in a topic or a subject that you are interested in and you're thinking that your teacher is not doing a good job, go online and look at resources. You will find what you're looking for.
I think that's sound advice. That's all right.
So
maybe don't be a jerk and go back to the teacher and tell them how they're doing everything wrong, but maybe just on your own time, go do this.
You can say that for your teacher review at the end of the semester, right?
Yeah, right, exactly.
But if someone's tenured or whatever, or like, let's say they're research focused, if we're talking about universities, like they might not actually care about education. And from a college perspective, a money's perspective, institutionally, they're like, yeah, keep you in your research. You make us money. So they don't maybe care if the students don't get biology or whatever, And so this is like a reality, So, anyways, so I hope
we've got a lot to cover. Sorry.
Here. No, so the other thing here that I think is a large kind of bonus for it is that, or a large plus, is that generally here when we're comparing to traditional education, we're talking low cost to no cost. Some of them are free, but typically what you can extract here, the value, like you're paying pennies on the dollar for the same kind of education, and it doesn't come with all of the infrastructural things that are offered at some kind of a university. But for these particular skills and resources, like you are not paying what you're paying for a college credit. Now, because we live in 2018, I would say that an argument for here is that most industries now are recognizing that the skill is more important than the traditional kind of quote unquote degree.
Oh.
What you can do, having the skill set, having the certificate, going through, having the portfolio that proves that you can do the work is a lot more important to a lot of people these days.
Yes, I think you're right.
We have so many people now, even people that we're kind of talking about in the industry and talking about in Technophiles, like they don't have the degree, but they had the vision and they executed on it. And like, I think that especially here in the Bay Area and Silicon Valley, looking at technology in general, like a tech company doesn't care that you have a degree from somewhere. They care that you can like produce.
Right. And I guess in the olden days, real quick, the degree was some kind of proof that you could produce. If you think about something like super, I'm jokingly, I'll say ancient time medicine or something that's very, this is, the human body doesn't change every 6 months as like the way computer code may or something like that. Yes, you would go to a school and for 4 to 6 to 8 to 9 to 10 years, learn everything you need to know about the human body and memorize all the things you need. And then that degree basically is the school saying we agree that this person knows all these things. That's the only was the only way to prove that you could do those things. But in this day and age, it a lot of things. Maybe medicine isn't the perfect example, but in certainly the industries we're talking about today, it is definitely proof in the pudding. Just if you can do it, that's all that matters.
Right, and so exactly. So kind of arguments against. And actually, I think that what you kind of mentioned there to me kind of ties in a little bit is that. like medicine being a perfect example here. One of my large arguments against, and things that I often find online when I was doing reading, is this concept of quality control.
Yeah, right. There it is.
There is no guarantee that what this is doing is like particularly good. Now, obviously, some companies are going to focus on this, and this is going to be a part of their business model, and so they factor that in. Or, some of these massively open online courses, right? If they're sponsored by a university, like we're using the university's credibility, the professor's credibility to talk about like how good the quality is here, right? But not every program is going to be like that. And so there is kind of, and in a space where peer-to-peer is a lot more popular on some of these programs, YouTube or whatever, right. Then there is no way that we can really look at quality. I mean, yeah, we can look at ratings, but like my interaction with some of these things is that within, let's say, the first lecture or two, you get a pop-up on your screen that says, hey, can you read this course? And they want you to rate it 5 stars because that's the only way it's going to show up in their search algorithms. And like, right. I mean, I don't know, man. I'm a little old school. Like to me, to give something 5 stars, like, and maybe I need to relax that a little bit because like the market space is so different now. But like lower stars can be crippling to these kinds of programs. And so they try and kind of get you right away. And me personally, I always click the do not ask me again. I will review your course when I'm done with it. Thank you very much.
No, I agree.
Right?
Well, I'm sure what they're trying to do is they're making that request. Their data or algorithms can show that that's right when that someone might be at peak satisfaction. It's all still the honeymoon, and it's like, oh, this is the coolest thing ever, and this is great, and I haven't done the hard stuff yet, and I'm learning so much, and I'm sure that's the right moment to ask that anyway.
Or it's one of those things where like their algorithms would suggest that you've made it this far, and we don't know if you're going to make it further. So you better rate it right now.
Get it in there.
And we're going to talk about that in a moment. So some other arguments against here. I think that there's probably a lack of high quality teachers, right? There are only so many educators in the world that are world class, right? And this is why universities put them and give them tenure. And you go to a program because there is this one person that does this one thing that you absolutely need to learn, right? So, I mean, we break down some of those barriers with massively open online courses, but like it's still not the same. It
almost becomes apprenticeship then. Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. I was just going to say it almost becomes like an apprenticeship thing where you go get exposed to these subtextual kind of experiences that you'd get from a professor like that. And yeah, there probably is some value to that. I'm sure. And then I think there's probably plenty of times where that isn't executed as well at a university. Sure.
Well, and it's impossible, at least right now, for us to replicate some of the other things that like a brick and mortar classroom does offer. Like being able to walk into a class, like have a teacher meeting. I mean, I know digitally it's pretty easy to do this these days, but like I would say that most, especially a lot of these skill certificate kind of styles of things, like how good of a feedback am I going to get from someone who like created a course that like thousands and thousands of people are doing? I honestly, if I'm honest, I haven't really experimented. I've been turning in kind of my homework to some of the social groups that they create. But like, I don't have a teacher automatically grading me on grading me on the things that I'm doing and giving me super high quality feedback that I can go in and have office hours with. I'm not interacting with my peers in the same way. So like it's different. It's obviously a different experience. Yeah. And so for people that learn in that way or kind of thrive in that environment or need that kind of accountability of getting up in the morning, physically walking to class.
Exactly. Like
they're not going to get it.
Totally understandable that for some people, that kind of meditative thing of doing the routine and maybe the 20 minutes it takes for you to get to class because maybe you're driving or walking or you're doing whatever, you're going through this building to that building to that building. Maybe that is a way to get your head in in the game, so to speak. And then for other people, they might have the kind of brain where they just want to sit down and hit it and get out of there. And I mean, obviously it works better for different people, but I can see how online may not be best for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Another glaring thing here that I would say is an argument against is like lack of access. And this here, again, I'll go a little bit more globally, but like we can look at the United States as well. If you don't have like a computer, or like an iPad or something like that, like depending on what you're trying to learn here, if your basically the way that I was kind of breaking it down and thinking about it was that if your access to this stuff is your phone,
Right.
you're going to have troubles. Like, how are you going to learn these skills? If you're just using, first of all, like the screen is small, like you're not taking notes anymore. There's a lot of things that kind of complement the learning experience that I think you're going to be missing out on. So I could just see a lot of these things as being very, 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 very complicated for people that maybe their only access to the internet is like a cell phone.
Access to the internet, right? Yeah, because certainly in the first act, you were definitely celebrating the fact that all you needed was internet to have access to a lot of this stuff.
And I still think that's the case. And I think that, basically, let's put it this way. It's something that needs to be factored into the architecture of this, especially moving forward. And like, I hope that these companies address it. And I'm sure that they do. I mean, I'm not on their board meetings. I have no idea. But like, to me personally, my experience so far has been like, I sit down in front of my computer, right? I have my like one monitor dedicated to the thing, and then my other monitor is dedicated to like whatever I'm doing.
Yeah, from a real estate point of view, that is luxurious. Right. Oh,
it's super nice, And so I think that like when we're talking about skill stuff, like if this is like part of your job or whatever, it's very possible that you have access to these kinds of things. You go into your workspace and maybe this is a part of what you're doing during the day or whatever. But like if you're just accessing on a cell phone, it's probably not going to be the best thing. That being said, the counter argument here maybe is also yeah, you might just be restricted to that cell phone. But if you are someone that like needs additional education, then you're just going to roll with it. If you have the desire to learn, you are going to make it work, but it's not ideal.
I see.
So one thing here, I think it goes without saying, much as almost anything that we talk about on Technophiles, like there is IT skills required. You do need to kind of understand how to operate all these different things that you're doing. You need to have solid skills in browser navigation and going to websites. And I mean, it's not rocket science, but like there are people that genuinely struggle with some of these things. And so, the lack of accessibility, if you don't have the IT confidence, then maybe that also could be a huge barrier to entry to begin with, period.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think that will kind of phase out over the years, but I agree completely.
Yeah, I mean, it's still gonna be an issue, and will remain an issue. And I think that what we'll see here is that like it'll probably be a downward trend. Less and less people will have these struggles as we have more and more digital natives. But then other factors are going to come in. Poverty, access to technology, all these different things will kind of influence. And I think that those things just get exacerbated when we're talking about something where the only solution is online. Right.
Fair enough.
And so the last thing here, and this actually comes into some other bullet points, but like low completion rates. And this was one of the arguments.
Okay, there we go.
And I kind of hinted at this here in when they ask you to rate the course. But people and researchers and industry leaders and everything, we've been looking at this stuff for a long time as far as like how engaged our students. So MIT, and I just have some notes here. MIT did some research on this. So to start with, I will start on a positive.
Okay.
MIT research would conclude that people who finish online courses, and here I think they're mostly talking about Moocs, massively open online courses. I'm just going to keep saying those things over and over because MOOC is probably a word that if you've never heard of it before, you're like, what is that again?
It sounds like something offensive.
A little bit. Or it sounds like, I don't know. To me, it sounds like like some kind of like video game.
Sure. Video game villain or something, right?
Yeah, something. Anyway. Or like, it's like this, like, I think I'm thinking of like massively multiplayer on, it sounds like that kind of.
Oh, right. MMORPG.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah. So anyways, so the research would conclude that people who actually go and finish these courses end up learning their gains, the knowledge that they learn is very similar to what they would learn in a normal classroom.
Okay.
So that's a great thing.
So if they finish, it seems to work out well.
It seems to work out well. They're getting the skills that they need. That's a huge positive. However, course completion rates are abysmal. Like,
oh my goodness. I just saw your notes.
I know you, and dang it. I should have I wanted to actually do, hoping that I could peel it back. So can you pretend that you didn't see this yet? I mean, going into this episode, if I were to ask you what completion rates were, what do you think they would be? And the audience, as you're listening or watching here, think of a number, and then it will tell you.
Yeah. I would probably be optimistic and say like, yeah, it's probably like a 60% turnaround. I'm sure there's like 40% of people that are out there that are quote unquote lazy, and that's fine, but they've invested in this.
Yeah, so it's like, research here, I'm going to preface this and just say that like things change constantly depending on who you're asking, what site you're on. But I'm just going to ballpark and just say combining, looking at multiple different sources here, let's call it 10%.
Yeah. I mean, you have one here that's 5.5%.
Yeah. So Harvard X, MIT X, these are a little bit older now. We're talking about a lot of these studies are,
that data.
A lot of this research, it takes a long time to collect this data and things like that. So
sure.
But yeah, looking at things like 5.5% for Harvard X and MIT X. And these are some complicated courses, but they put these things online and 5-ish% of people complete it.
Okay, let me offer this. I'm going to try to be very optimistic about this, and I might even be trying to justify it. And if I'm doing that, I apologize. But just for a second, maybe this percentage looks so low because it's so easy for people to get started that more people are trying it out in the first place, and then maybe choosing it's not for them or losing their energy or whatever. But that initial sign-in might be easier than getting set up at a brick and mortar college and all these other things. And it's easier to just give it a try and then maybe it doesn't work for you. Like I'm trying here. You know what I mean?
Oh, probably. There were not a lot of discussions about some of those external factors. But what I think is really interesting is that most of the time, people probably don't even watch the first lecture.
They sign up and they
never do anything.
Yeah. Well, okay. So then it just really comes down
so like
to if
Penn,
you go in there and you've got the right
GSE
attitude, it will work.
And it was, right. And so there's 4% across the board was what they had kind of found through their study. And at the time that they did this, again, this is kind of going back in the Wayback Machine to like 2013, 2014.
Sure.
But about half of the people who registered viewed at least one lecture.
About half viewed at least one. So that's already down to 50%. I get it.
On like the first barrier of entry.
So this is almost you're the first. This is akin to when people sign up for gym memberships after the holidays. They're like, "I'm ready. I'm going to do it," and they go once, and then it's just a little too much work.
That's exactly. It's perfect. So I didn't want to. I mean, this is why it was my last bullet point in the arguments against here. I don't really know that we can actually do anything about this, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in future stuff.
I agree.
But some other interesting trends in the data. So these are just market insights. But it's interesting. So exactly like you said, David. Just like the start of the year, everyone wants to be gung ho on it, and really you're only going to have a couple percentage ultimately that at the end of the year are still going to the gym.
And
it's
I would
hard
argue
to start habits.
that's not necessarily the gym's fault. Perhaps some of these programs, it's not their fault either.
Oh. Okay, it's not the gym's fault.
You see where I'm going with
I don't think we can play the gym. No, this is habit forming for humans is really tough. Like we're kind of lazy people. Like
so maybe the social experience of what I've been calling the brick and mortar, there's a little bit more immediate responsibility. Like you have to show up to class if it's one of those kind of things. Otherwise you don't get that information is what it was for the past couple hundred years. Is that kind of what direction we're heading here?
Yeah, so we are, certainly. And so some other interesting trends in the data here, and I'll be quick about them, but automatically marked courses actually have a higher success rate over courses that have peer review. So when it's machine learning marking, and you're really like true falsing, there's not a lot of engagement. You're not having to like write essays, turn in homework assignments that are very detailed. Those completion rates go up a little bit. Like we're talking more in like the 10 to 20% range, whereas some of these other courses are significantly lower. And a lot of these studies, what happens is they look at like maybe like 18 or 19 courses in total at the enrollment, and then they do things. So like there's way more data to gather here, and a lot of these companies, they're probably pretty tight-lipped about their data too. They don't want too many people to know this stuff. Like internally, they know it, but like if you're a business and you're like, yeah, people are buying our stuff, and then there's no server calls because they don't ever do anything, you're probably like, this is fantastic, right? You're really happy. You're really happy, quite frankly. It's like Netflix, who's like, wait, you're never watching a video and you just gave them $12 a month? Like, sweet. So, and the other thing too here, and actually, David, it's when things are paid, there is actually also a higher completion rate. So if people have to put their money in up front, they're more likely. But even here, we're talking like sub 20%, I think, on the whole. So, and here's my just like little note here before we go into kind of some future stuff. But if you are looking at courses online, as a listener here, never, ever, 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 I'm just going to say that one more time, pay full price for a course.
Okay, well, let me ask you, how do you not pay full price? I'm sure there's just a button on the site.
There's like always a sale going on. And if there's not a sale, you wait like 5 more minutes and there will be a sale. But like some of these courses,
5 more minutes?
I know, maybe not 5 minutes, but like
I thought you were going to say 5 more months.
But like, no, okay. I have had courses that I put on watch list, and like I'm kind of like a course, like I just like buy courses, Rand. It's like, it's horrible. Pooey, don't listen to this episode. No, but like, I bought a couple of courses because they were good deals, you know, and so like that's great for me. But like sometimes these courses get listed, like the MSRP of the course is like $200, and like that's not even, to me, that's like, if you're talking about like 50 hours of content, like $200 is actually fairly cheap. But like you can get these courses for like $15. I would say the average rate for a course on like Udemy, which is like a detailed, fairly comprehensive, maybe like 8 hours of lecture and activities, maybe like $15, like that's pretty good. But I don't know if I would pay $200 for that. So just a kind of service announcement to anyone that's interested in some of these things, be cautious about getting, you know, when you get in, they're going to pull on your heartstrings and your emotions and be like, you can do anything. Just give us your money now. You know, see if you can't find a deal.
Fascinating. And the best way to do, the best way to do that is to use a third party or something that's finding the deals, like how there's like businesses out there that do that for hotels, or like what's the best way to find this?
I would say that a good way to do it is, you know, if there's something like maybe watch list it for a moment. You know, obviously I think that there's going to be some sales, or sometimes they have like, hey, you're a new subscriber, take advantage of your sale. Like you want to be doing that. And then from there, I think it's a good idea to kind of watch list things and wait, because a lot of these companies are competing against each other. And one of the ways that they do that is by doing sales. So, you know, and like, be a smart consumer, do some shopping. So if you're finding a course, or you have like a topic in mind, don't just go to one site, you know, try some things out. A lot of these things have trials too. So if a course isn't working, you know, I don't think there's anything wrong with like returning it basically and just being like, hey, look, I'm not going to get through this.
Interesting.
And most of these programs will probably help you out. So just a little quick thing. So now I want to kind of shift gears here and just talk about some like projections into the future. So as a lot of this data would suggest, and back to like the market growth thing, you know, this is going to be a huge industry, and it just continues to rise, right? 10% growth annually minimum.
It's curving and like, trending
it's not going to end.
It's not, and it's probably not going to crash.
So one of the things that I saw when I was looking at this and just kind of, you know, in general is I think it's probably pretty safe to say, and I'm curious about your thoughts here, but like technology is going to play a larger and larger role in like general education as well.
Well, I mean, the quickest thing that anybody can think of is right now we're doing it on our computer screens, but it could easily start being on our virtual reality helmets, and it could be in our augmented reality helmets and all that kind of stuff. And so then you could easily imagine a scenario where, maybe you have this pre-recorded lecture. You don't need VR for that, or you could for the fun of it, but you don't need it. But maybe there's a bit of a lab where the people want to be together and they're experiencing a single thing together or something. That starts to become something that could be pretty interesting. But I mean, that's getting higher. Well, no, wait. Because it could be as simple as taking your Google phone and putting it into that piece of cardboard that you tape to your face, and then you can go to the lab, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's very possible that more and more and more kind of normal. I think basically what we're going to see here, I guess it's my kind of takeaway from looking at this is like general education and online education are just going to be education. Yeah, I think you're right. For sure. You know, and there's obviously some resistance, and as we're seeing with some other things that are going on in the world right now, like we don't really quite understand the impact of some of the technologies that we're introducing to the world. Facebook. So. You know, we got to sort this stuff out. You know, I think anthropologists, psychologists, sociologists, all these, like, we need to get everyone involved and experts involved to kind of really kind of sort this stuff out. And like, just like anything else, like we're going to continue to experiment and people have their policies and schools will kind of try different things and we'll see what works. But I just think like my general takeaway from all of this is, like I said, education, online education, they're just going to blend together.
Going to become the same thing.
It's going to be one thing.
You didn't happen to come across any data that showed that like enrollment was going down in brick and mortars or anything? Did you happen to spot anything?
No,
like that?
And I think that most brick and mortars are actually looking at online as like a separate market that they can take advantage of. Yep. So like they're reaping the same benefits.
Exactly. And that also leads to this whole it all becomes education thing that you're speaking about.
Yeah. So people that are still looking for the experience of whatever are going to go, do it.
Let's think about this. Could it turn into a world of skill sets, not of degrees? You have like your bio of skill sets, and that's what actually like the recruiters are looking for more than even just a degree from a particular place.
A LinkedIn profile.
You know what I mean? It's like, well, like a LinkedIn profile, but each skill is backed up by a certification, and it's what is it when you go to? It's almost not a salad bar, but it's like an a la carte experience of this is the skill set. This person's acquired these skills independently all over the place, maybe even from different businesses, and so be it.
So here's what I think. One thing, and so it's not even like it's that radical. Some articles kind of were suggesting some of these things, and so I'm just like riffing off some ideas here. But sure. I think one way that it could happen, one thing that I could kind of see is that like maybe education becomes a little bit more free. Like the act of educating, giving you the knowledge is like free, and then what happens is you would pay at the end for your certification from an authority. Okay. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's an online. So like we give you all the stuff. And if you are part of that 5% or 10% or whatever that actually gets through it.
Yeah.
Now you could pay us. We'll give you an assessment that says, yep, we Adobe or we Harvard sign off on the fact that you have done your work and you know your stuff. Here's your badge. Right. Mm-hmm. And you can display that badge on your online profile and your persona and your LinkedIn or whatever. So like the certificate gets signed off on, but you've done all the work in your online space at your own pace. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're paying to take the final exam in a way a little bit to prove it.
Yep.
It's okay.
And that's like I'm super cool with that actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, that sounds great. So I think that I genuinely think that we could see some of this stuff where free education, I think like we see a lot of success when we're looking, to go to like a different kind of space here, but like app stores, some of the most popular things that are on here are freemium models. So I think that we're going to see a freemium thing starting to happen in education and a lot more. But I think that there's going to be riots if we say, hey, look, you only get the first 2 lectures. Now you have to pay. So another way that we could combat that is by having this idea of, fine, it's all free, but if you want the accreditation, if you want the college credits, you want the degree that you're going to use to get the job, you got to pay us money at the end.
Because the wrong way to do that is like, oh, it's cool, it's a free class, and every time you take a class, you earn 5 Kadoinky Doinky coins, and every time you pay for those Kadoinky Doinky coins, you can buy your 3rd course and your 4th course. That would be the worst.
And it's like, it already happens. I mean, it's like gamification of it. I mean, I think that a lot of mobile apps, like that is their freemium model. So you get your thing and you do your, but that might be really good because it encourages learning, David. Right? If you're trying to get the Kadoinkadoinks and you finish your first couple lessons and it lets you move on, like at least we know that you're completing it.
I hear you. Okay, fair enough. I was just thinking how much I don't enjoy gaming experiences that have that mechanic, and I thought, oh my gosh, if that were to be placed on education, that would be even more horrible. But I hear what you're saying.
I mean, I think it's going to be interesting to see, but like, yeah, it should be concerning. I also think it's going to happen. I mean, I don't really know how to. I would love like other users like that are listening. If you guys have opinions on this, definitely like. These are great conversations because I don't know, but like it's probably going to happen.
Interesting.
So one thing that I thought about too, and this was,
I mean, it's happening in corporate already, but that's a whole nother conversation. But anyway.
So I think that what we might see, especially when we're talking about the skill set things, like I think that we're going to probably see more kind of specialized training programs. I think that like companies are going to start using these models as a way of onboarding people into their own programs. And so this can be a way that they can give people the skills they need to operate in their company well. Like, why do we need to bring people in to train? Like, here's our lecture that we made once really well, and now we just share it with everybody, right? Okay. And then you can use that as an onboarding technique, but it can also be used as a vetting process.
Okay.
So, and there was a really interesting, now I need to find this, because I want to give a shout out to the person that wrote it, because I'm totally riffing off of their idea here. But there's an article on EdSurge. It's by Amy Aheen, a columnist, February 22nd, 2017. So about a year ago, but very relevant.
And I see your link, and I'll definitely put it in the show notes.
The flip side of abysmal MOOC completion rates, discovering the most tenacious learners.
There you go. There you go.
So if we look at this model and we say, hey, look, 5%, like, guess what? When you apply to Harvard, like, they're only letting 5% of the students in anyways. When you apply to any of these things, when you apply to jobs, right, they're not going to take every candidate. They're going to take the select few that meet the criteria.
That's an excellent point.
If we're using this as some kind of a vetting process, right, like it is a way for you to potentially stand out and say, hey, look, I actually can finish these things. Like I have the certificates to prove it. And so this can be a game changer. It can be things that like a tech company could build these things, or, anyone really, now that these technologies are becoming so prominent. But like, you create a vetting process, and this is a great way to do it. I mean, there are literally tech companies right now where their entire business model is built around this. You go on, you take some quiz, you do some things, you write your resume, and then based on how you do, this company says, hey, you have skill sets that I think that we can pitch to a company, and then they take a finder's fee.
Okay. All right. It's almost like a new version of a recruiter or something. It's like a reverse recruiter.
It's exactly a recruiter. It's just an online recruiter that is now no longer a person, but it's an entity. It's a business. It's an algorithm. It's a test. I mean, whatever it is, I think that the application is very. It's easy to apply to many different things, and I think that we're going to see this more and more.
It's like robo recruiters.
And this kind of leads into my thing here, which is AI, and I think that that's going to be the biggest game changer. Right?
I didn't see that. Sorry. Yeah. Sure. Yep.
So like, I think that AI, as far as like making education, improving education, like, holy cow, I can't wait. Just the idea that like adapting to user needs, recommending courses that might fit your learning style, giving custom feedback when mistakes are being made, or looking at your trends, or anticipating where you might have problems, or seeing what you're doing on your screen because the AI is living in your computer and it's like, hey, you're struggling with this concept. Here's like 50 links right now that help you with it. Like all of these things, like, I don't even know, man. I don't know enough about AI, but like, it gets me very excited.
I can see that. Absolutely.
And I think that when companies start using this stuff, right, or if we have some kind of social network that is using an AI system, then that social network, or like your operating system with an AI in it, might find, oh, hey, Jake, I see that you've been doing these things here. Well, here's some things that I think like you could go get certified in these skills right now, and then those could be used for this job.
Oh, wow. You may not even recognize that already or yet, or whatever.
But the machine learning, the AI, might actually see your trends, or be like, hey, kid, I noticed that you're in class not paying attention and you're doodling a lot.
Right.
Like, you actually are really good at this. Maybe you can check this stuff out.
Go take some of these art classes, or who knows, or whatever. Attention.
But like, who knows, man? If you have a universal basic income, it doesn't matter. Like, pursue your dreams. So, and that really, like, I don't know. Do you have any other thoughts on like, based on kind of everything here? I know that I was like spearheading this conversation, but like, what are your kind of future things? Do you see anything that you're like, well, oh yeah, this might be really interesting?
As you're speaking about, my thing that I was starting to guess is that maybe we continue. So I work in a creative line of work, and so every single time that I've worked for a company, they don't want to see the resume. They want to see the portfolio. You bring this resume along, so to speak, but every single company, big and small, they just want you to open up that book. And if they like your art, they like it or they don't. You know what I mean? It's almost that simple.
That's gotten easier in the digital space. Hey,
it has indeed. It has indeed. And so I've always thought about that. I was thinking like, okay, well, my skill set's very quantifiable. It's basically like, do you like it or not? You know, do you think I can make the stuff you want or not? Very, in an odd way, that's very calculable or quantifiable. How do you know if someone is really, really good at writing code or really, really good at just like a simple trade? Like, oh, I'm a plumber. Let's just keep it really, really, really simple. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I'm like really good with toilets. It's awesome, man. I'm great. How do they know that? How does someone know that? I guess, in our current system, we use reviews and stuff, but if you could have certain certifications of these skill sets where, you don't, forgive me, I'm keeping this pretty broad, but you don't go to plumber school, you don't go to college and get this, like, you don't learn history and all these other things to learn to be a plumber, but you do need to be a very, very good plumber if that's what your trade is.
You go to trade school.
Yeah, trade. Okay, so I just said trade, right? So you don't need to go to like Harvard for that, and that is perfectly acceptable. And I actually think that that's wonderful. I think like there's a lot of college bloat going on right now, and
absolutely.
It's almost insulting, to be quite frank. So I'm very much I almost said a champion, but in favor of something that maybe you still. So it's we have skill sets. And then we have our degrees. But the things that you've been speaking about today, where maybe we can have certified skill sets, that excites me.
Mm-hmm. And I think honestly, like that's kind of where the market is right now. And it's like, I think it's going to continue. And I think it's going to be a balance between, the things that you're personally kind of working toward and the industries that are like taking interest in this and really like working to develop it. I could see that as technologies get better and more accessible, for right now, we've been talking a lot from the learner perspective, but if we flip it around and we look at the educator perspective, there are people that know things that are not comfortable with creating a good online course. But technologies are going to get better. They're going to get easier to use. People can do this. And I think that we're actually going to make it so that even more people can teach their trade, their skill, their interest, their hobby, whatever it is, to anyone. Yeah. YouTube has already done this, right? Facebook Live, all these different things. The fact that I can hold my phone up, record me doing something, and share it with the world is remarkable. Mm-hmm. And it has changed things in a way that we can't even begin to kind of unpack.
And now here's a great example.
So many butterfly effects.
I agree. Here's a great example. The amount of times I've gone onto YouTube because of some wacky little thing that I haven't done on Illustrator for 5 years and I kind of needed to remember how to do it, or they updated it in a version and I'm not sure. Yep. The amount of times I Google that, or the amount of times I Google how to change the tire on a car that's new for me that I'm not totally familiar with, and it has like a weird, I wasn't able to figure it out, or something with an engine. But with that said, definitely the amount of times that I've gone on YouTube to learn how to stitch someone's arm that's half falling off is zero. Do you see where I'm going with this?
But I bet you could do it.
I guess.
All right, I don't guarantee results here. And this is not me endorsing that you take medical stuff into your own hands. However, well, you'd only have one hand trying to. Anyways, no, bad joke. But no, you are absolutely right. I think that we now live in an era. If you are accessing technology regularly, right? We don't like. It's like I'm not going to go to the Genius Bar as my first step. I'm not going to go to the mechanic as my first step. I'm going to YouTube how to fix the thing that's broken.
Yeah, right. And I do believe
so there's definitely
I was trying to make a point there that there's a spectrum, and certainly we were using YouTube because that's much more community and it's significantly broader than a lot of the more focused things we've been speaking about today. Mm-hmm. But with that said, I do feel generally that the more knowledge is shared and the more trades and skills and general concepts and all of that is shared, the smarter everybody gets. I think that's just obvious.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Right. And so that to me is what's so interesting about this topic. That's why I want to talk about it today is like we live in an age, and I guess like, I don't know, we've been a part of it for so long, but being kind of a little bit more of an active participant in like, I'm trying to learn something new. How am I going about doing that? It kind of gave me a fresh take on this thing. And like, sure. I genuinely think that like, we live in an age now where if you have access to this technology, you can learn anything that you want to do about anything. And that is amazing.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's so freaking cool. It's just blows my mind. And so I just want to remind everyone that's listening, like, if you had an inkling to do something, you thought about it.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I know you're kind of ramping up to finish up the episode.
I am, but yeah, cut me off. No, that's fine.
I just thought of something. It's like, hundreds of years ago, generally, I don't know, I'm just being kind of like really super vague here, but that version was something like a library or something. It was knowledge was put into books because it had to be recorded somewhere. Those books get put into a hub, and then you literally physically travel to that hub. Well, now it's not a hub, it's a hive, and it's all over the place. Yep. And that's very exciting.
Oh yeah, it is super exciting. And like, I mean, it's more efficient. And I think that's like the really interesting thing too, is like and really like what we're going to probably see in the future is that it's only going to get better and better. As AI, as machine learning improves, as technology improves, as some of these people that are working on these things do their jobs better and make improvements and stuff, we're just going to get more efficient at learning things that we need to learn as quickly as possible. And that like really is what the internet to me in this, as far as online education, like enables.
And I just thought of one.
Getting the thing that you need now. And being
able
to, you have an idea, great. Here's you start it off right away and you can get going. And it's
absolutely. Cool. And I just thought of one final note for myself, and then I do feel we could probably end this episode. We've been kind of talking for a while, but this has been very exciting to discuss. Thank you. And it's because I haven't seen you in a while. It's kind of nice to catch up a little bit and talk about this kind of stuff. I'm so used to seeing you every week, but I just realized in the beginning of this episode I made a comment about how kind of obviously information is the easiest thing to share in this kind of format, not physical objects, but information, and Oh no, I lost my point. Oh, right. There's a lot of analysts that feel that the next kind of the main jobs, okay, so in the Industrial Revolution, it was people that needed skills to work in factories and things like that, and that's wonderful. But the next version of that is going to be people writing code and knowing how to work with these mathematical kind of abstract things. And I just realized this can enable someone that if they're not near an educational source, or they don't have all the access to an educational source, they can invest in some of these easier, quicker, thinner things that have a lot of the fat trimmed off, and perhaps still learn those exact skills that they could still use in a job. And all of this is still happening over the internet.
Yeah. They can learn anything, and they can create anything.
Like I'm telling the kids to go learn code is what I'm basically saying. Is it you were starting to tell people to learn stuff too, but I'm saying like you can do it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, just looking, if we look back here at the recap of some of the like key players and the things that the people are interested in, like, yeah, this is a great way to future-proof yourself and get ready for the changes that are happening. And it's like, it's all going to be incremental. That's the thing too. And so it's like, it's not going to happen overnight. I don't think there's going to be a huge shift, but like, if there's a topic or whatever that you're curious about, basically, I think right now the barrier to entry on any of those things has never been lower. So if you don't know something that you want to know, that is like no longer really an excuse.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Go do it. And if not, like, that's fine. Just be lazy and admit your laziness, but it's not that it's not there. And that's kind of the largest thing that I have to say about the end of it is like, if you want to learn something, you can do it. It's out there probably. It's more accessible than ever. I mean, it's not always going to be there, but like, if you're not doing it, it's not on the tech anymore.
Fair enough. Fair enough, Jake. I've got to call it there, but that was a wonderful place to end, and because we're like 20 minutes over, but it was a great conversation, and that was wonderful. So I guess that's that. If people do want to continue the conversation with you after this, if they have questions or thoughts about some of the things you've said, they can certainly reach out to you online. I'm guessing probably most likely through Twitter, perhaps Instagram.
Yeah, Twitter, Instagram. I'm Critical Owl on both for those, and for this stuff too, because it's a little bit heavier as far as subject. Like if there's a lot of things, like I don't know, maybe they can come post on our Facebook page and we can keep the conversation going there. I mean, I'm going to see it anyways, or like you can tag me, or so we can. There's so many different mediums that we can continue the conversation on, and yeah, I'd be happy to. I think
that's a good point. In fact, if people tweet our actual, even our Twitter account, which is Technophiles Technophiles pod, we have a Slack app that grabs that and pulls it and shares it with the entire cast. And so that's a great way that everybody can see it and join in the conversation there as well. And that would be wonderful.
Yeah, and we love it, actually. Like, I don't know, I'm just going to say it because we had a couple of users, like, maybe, I don't know, can we do like a shout out, David?
If you've got a few that tweeted stuff, that's fine. We can burn a second here.
I need to look super quick.
Jazz hands, jazz hands. The show keeps going.
Max N 2000. I won't read his whole handle. Sorry. No, but like he said, love your podcast. Watched 2 of the recent episodes. Can't wait for more. And thank you. I mean, I personally I love seeing stuff like that in the feed. So you know, encouragement. We like it. You know, if this was a YouTube channel, right? We're like, slam that like button, hit the subscribe. But like genuinely, if you guys do like it, like we do like to hear about it.
Indeed. And you know, we do put these episodes up on YouTube as well. So if you listen to this on iTunes, if you're driving in your car and you listen to this on iTunes, that's wonderful. But we do have a video version of these episodes. And Jake, Leona and I, we've been looking at the analytics, and YouTube is trending up in a very exciting way. So I can definitely encourage people to go there too. You get to look at our beautiful faces as we say these words.
Yeah. And nice backgrounds and weird hand gestures that we do.
And perhaps some assets here and there. All right, Jake, let's do this. Let's get out of here, and I will see you in a couple weeks for sure.
All right, sounds good.
Later, dude.
Bye.